I had to write this down because I didn't want to screw this up, because once I started building this, I was like, okay, I wanna get this right. So our next speaker is not Mark. I feel like it's a Top Gear moment. Has swam in shark-infested waters. From Alcatraz prison. Okay, has swam in shark-infested waters from Alcatraz prison. Has run with the most dangerous animals on the Serengeti. Has run 250 kilometers, which I don't think I've done in my entire freaking life. Self-supported in the Himalayas. He's a free hugger, along with myself, who went and did this like really cool thing and went and did all free hugs in Vancouver. I encourage you all to do it. Put on a t-shirt that says free hugs, go walk around. Just do it. You will feel amazing. I kid you not. People will give you the weirdest looks when they do it. He's a sports philanthropist, having raised over $600,000 for various charities. He's that positive quote guy on Facebook that you all love. We all have one. I think for some of my friends, I'm actually that guy. He's a storyteller. And this is my favorite part. I actually had to go do it, and you have to do it too. He's a mountain sexual. Yeah! A mountain sexual. I encourage you to look it up on Urban Dictionary later. Mountain sexual. Mr. Grant Snowfield.
Thanks, Tyler. I love getting asked the question, why? Like, what compels someone to swim their first triathlon with one arm? What compels someone to run across the African Serengeti with the most dangerous animals on the continent? What drives somebody to run 250 kilometers in the Himalayas suffering from dysentery? What gets somebody to lead 7 first-time ultra runners through Costa Rica only to get exercise-induced kidney failure themselves? It's because I can. And what I really mean by that is I see it as a remarkable privilege that every morning I get the choice to put on my shoes and go for a run. I don't have to go to chemo. There's clean water in my tap, and I've always had amazing access to education. These are things that were just easily available to me. And this is the combination of my talent and helping people is really what gives me my purpose. And my purpose in life is to be a constant and expanding example of what is achievable. To remind people that they are larger than themselves. To help them recognize they're capable of, activate them to go and fulfill it, and to realize their own potential so they will then go and activate others to fulfill theirs. It's with this spirit that I really want to thank Connor for having this vision and creating this space. And I really want to honor all of you and thank you all for coming here this evening and hearing our stories. You've all taken time out of your lives, out of your schedules to be here tonight to hear us. And the reality is that we actually, we really, really, really need you to be here in order to have the courage to tell our stories. In exchange for your time, I'm going to tell 3 simple stories from my life and what I learned from them. And then I'm going to give you 3 simple things that you can do every day in your life to have a profound impact on not only on your own life, but in the lives of those people who are most important to you. The first story is about when I raced in Nepal. It was a 250 kilometer foot race, self-supported, so I carried everything on my back except for my tent. They gave us water, and that was it. You carried everything else. The average daily gain of elevation was between 10 and 15,000 feet. That's about the same as running from Ambleside to top of Grouse and repeating that 4 times. 3 hours into this race, my IT band exploded. So imagine just excruciating pain right here on the side of your knee. and like every step just hurts. As it turns out, I got really, really lucky because I discovered the single most beneficial and fastest cure to relieve IT band pain. It is chronic diarrhea and projectile vomiting. There was a rotavirus ripping through camp, and I was one of the fortunate people who got it on day one. Needless to say, there was no sleep on night one. It was spent in the bushes. And on the morning of day two, I found myself in this field trying to get a cell phone signal. I wanted permission to stop. I wanted permission not to start that day. And I think it's really important that when we start to look at these spots of vulnerability or points where we feel shame, that we really understand first how men define shame. Brene Brown, in all of her lifetime of research and expertise, will tell you that for men, shame is failure. At work, on the football field, in your marriage, in bed, with your money, with your children. It doesn't matter. Shame is failure. Revealing weakness is shame. Basically, men live with the pressure of one unrelenting message. Do not be perceived as weak. So I'm standing in this field, wanting permission to stop, and I couldn't get a cell phone signal. So I reached into my pocket and I pulled out a letter. And I read it 3 times, and it gave me that permission that I needed to continue. It reminded me of all the people that believed in me. It let me know that it didn't matter how fast I went, just that I believed. I decided to take it one aid station at a time, so about 7 to 10K at a time. I made a partnership with another racer, and we got through the 40K day, the 15,000 feet of elevation gain, and I ate about 400 calories. I normally eat about 8,000 in training. Day 2, or the day that followed, I found myself spending 30 kilometers without seeing another human being. I recited the monologue from Scent of a Woman, and I sang every single song from the Tragically Hip that I could possibly remember. And the good news is that eventually you do finally remember to put the words of Wheat Kings in the right order. It was then on day 5. So the way these races work is you run 40K, you run 40K, you run 40K, you run 40K, and then they're like, hey, you should run 80. And despite how I was feeling, I was still able to knock off these 40K days in about 5.5 to 6.5 hours. On day 5, I went through the first 28K, and I had been running for 10 hours. 10 hours. As it got dark and I threw on my headlamp, another racer and I covered the final 47K of the day in 4 hours and 45 minutes. I believe that when we put these types of challenges in front of us, a lot of people will set out to become bigger because of the experience. And when we go through points of adversity in our life, about whether it's career, relationship, physical, emotional, otherwise, that a lot of people start to tell you that they learned how well they know themselves. I have learned 2 very different things. I have learned how small I am. Go stand on the top of Grouse Mountain or on the beach at Spanish Banks and just look out, and I promise you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The other thing that I have learned is how little I know about myself. And I am so excited to be able to spend the rest of my life getting to know me and having an amazing relationship with myself. I'm so grateful for that. The second story is about taking 6 first-time ultra runners to Costa Rica. I was sending these email updates from Nepal, telling them all about being in the bushes and the poop. And I got all these emails back, and they're like, I want to go and do this. I'm like, you're crazy. Okay, let's go. And so I sent out an email to 60 people. And 12 months later, on the start line, there were 7 of us. At different points through our training, each of my teammates came to me individually and said to me, do you think that I can do this? They all got the same answer. Yes. And that is all they got. There was nothing else. They just got yes. The reason I knew that I could say it so confidently is because I had discovered their whys. I discovered the reasons why they wanted to take this challenge on. So it was very easy for me to tap into them when they needed me to and remind them of the reason why. Now, as I watched my team over the first couple of days, I will be the first to admit that I underestimated the difficulty of this race. After 2 days, there's some of my teammates in the audience. Over the course of the first 2 days, I found teammates under trees suffering from dehydration. I saw muscle seizures. I saw the fear of the ability to continue. I saw feet that had become blisters. I saw people who had been lost for 12 kilometers. And I saw somebody who had beat cancer twice look me in the eye and go, how am I going to do this? I saw carnage. And I actually wondered if everyone was going to be able to make it. The third day was a 54-kilometer day, and with 800 meters to go, I started to feel nauseous. And so I stopped at the side of the trail, and I tried to be sick, and I couldn't. So I went, a few more meters, and I tried to be sick, and I couldn't. And as I stood up, I felt chills rise from my ankles all the way to the top of my head. And I went, okay, time to see what color your pee is. And it matched the color of Coke. So my kidneys had shut down. I got across the finish line, and I went to the med tent, and I sat in the med tent for 2.5 hours with ice on every single part of my body, and inside my shorts, on my head, down my back. And then I individually told each of my teammates that my race was over, and I wouldn't be racing anymore. I knew when my kidneys shut down that stopping was, the immediate, right, obvious choice. It doesn't mean that it was easy. I felt like I had let my team down. I felt like, the last 12 months of preparation were just gone. When I took 20 minutes myself and I came back to my team, and we just went through our same daily habit of what we were doing. And the reality of me dropping from the race was that I got a first-class ticket to their experiences. I got to be there at the finish line every day. I got to see them come across. I got to focus on helping them accomplish their goal, which was the entire reason why I put the trip together in the first place. From Costa Rica, I learned a couple of things. I learned that I'm an activator. I learned the power of having positive people in your life. And I finally started to get comfortable with being called and recognizing myself as a leader. The third story is one that I've never told before. Some of my friends in the room will know that not so long ago, I was in a work environment that was so toxic that I had piercing pain in my heart. I was suffering from, so much stress and anxiety that I would leave work multiple times a day just to go and sit in my car and scream. It was obviously it was super challenging. And I was subject to a number of different character attacks. And this was right after my trip to Costa Rica. And I was told that I had absolutely no ability to lead another person. During this time, I went to a good friend's wedding. And as everyone was laughing and rejoicing and celebrating, I was controlling my breath as best I could and trying not to make it obvious that I was scratching at my heart. After the dinner and the speeches, I found the groom and I gave him a little update on what was going on. I apologized and I headed home. I felt embarrassed. I felt awful. I felt like I had let him down. I felt shame. Earlier in that day, I'd been subject to one of those character attacks. And as I drove home, I replayed that conversation to others over and over in my head. And I became harder and harder on myself. I texted my girlfriend, who was out at a very important event herself, to let her know that I was headed home and that I needed her. She came right away. She got into bed with her dress on and held me as I cried every tear my body could manufacture. This time in my life was very hard on our relationship. As much as I was, sharing that I was afraid of, I was dealing with this anxiety and this stress and this pain in my heart, and I was afraid of going to work, I was more afraid of showing her continued weakness. But in all these things, there are immense positives. From this experience, I built my life's design principles. And it was one of those things where, I was so afraid of going to that weak place with her, of showing her that I was weak, or just maintaining that sense of shame. But it was finally reaching out to the person that I was most afraid of letting down and most afraid of showing weakness to, that I got stronger. And this is where I built my life's design principles. And this is where I understood that I should be continually looking for those people who are going to help me fulfill my life's purpose. I gained the confidence to start my own business. I also learned how awesome it is to be a little spoon and to fall asleep with this little jetpack on. And most importantly, I learned to embrace, celebrate, and appreciate the woman I love. Each of these stories have a common theme. And it's that we should never be afraid to fall apart, because it gives us the opportunity to rebuild ourselves the way we wanted to in the first place. When I was in that space at work, I had given my power away. And I don't say that for any other reason but to acknowledge and honor that point in my life. And it's with this spirit that, I really want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. And, as much as I want to be sharing that, here are some stories and here are some things about how we shouldn't be afraid to fall apart, I also promise you 3 things that you could do daily to have a huge impact on your own life. The first is to do, if you can, 30 minutes of personal development every day. It can be audio, it can be a book, it can be a video, it doesn't matter. A number of the speakers at last ManTalks talked about meditation. That counts. You can do it on your commute, while you're walking to the gym, wherever, it doesn't matter. And if 30 minutes seems daunting at first, go to 15, go to 10, go to 5, and then build your way back up. The good news is that you're here tonight and you've done it. The second thing is just really that power of positive thinking. And so I want everyone to think about a moment in your life where you were just extremely happy, when everything felt right, There's so much happiness and love. I want you to take your thumb and your forefinger and I want you to press them together. As you close your eyes and think about that moment, press your fingers together tightly. Think about the happiness, the joy, the love. You can open your eyes and let go. Whenever you have a happy moment in your life, or you remember something from your life, take your fingers together and stack those happy memories. When you find yourself in a spot where you're frustrated or some of that negative self-talk is starting, take those same fingers together and squeeze them again. I promise you, you will start to feel that same memory. It'll come right back to you. You'll see it. And the third thing is to be thankful every day. My girlfriend and I have a chalkboard in our kitchen where every night before we go to bed, we write something on it that we are thankful for about each other. So what I'd like you to do is to turn to the person next to you, and if you don't know them, tell them something that you're thankful for from somebody important to your life. And if you do know them, I want you to tell them something thankful that you are about them. I'm seeing lots of hugs going on. Like it feels really, really good. So here's my ask. Find someone in your life that you can do that with every day. And okay, I get it. As much as I've asked you not to be afraid of falling apart, and I've given you these 3 little tools you can use to stay in that happy place, there's going to be times when stress or anxiety are going to come back in. There's going to be times when you're hurting, you're homesick, that all the ice cream in the world, won't account for the number of feelings you want to eat. There's going to be times when that person that you're most thankful for may not be there. In those times when your eyes feel weak and sunken, when you feel like the best weapon you have to fight the enemy with is despair, give me your hand and I'll hold it.